Could you tell me your name and the name of your book?
Yes, Susan Maushart, The Winter of Our Disconnect.
Why did you decide to pull the plug on everything electric in your home? Electronic.
Okay, well, I guess the short answer is really I was worried about my kids. Okay, there's a long answer, and it's pretty complicated. I was worried about myself as well, because I don't want to give the impression that, I was the pure one sitting in a corner, reading War and Peace while everybody else was Facebook chatting, because in fact, I was almost as wired as they were. Slept with my iPhone, bought it little outfits, I gave it a name. I mean, all of that, when you think about it, particularly in retrospect, is worrying.
Did you disconnect the TV as well?
Oh, absolutely we did. Absolutely. And research shows that TV is kind of like the hub medium, even though for many teenagers it seems like it's kind of not cutting edge anymore because they watch most of their programming on their laptops. But the TV is like an electronic hearth, and always has been. It's been described like that since the 60s. And it still kind of tends to be the gathering point. These days, it's the hearth around which we all multitask. I mean, who sits down to watch television and they just watch television? Nobody does that. We eliminated the television, so we didn't have to worry.
Mm-hmm. And now, these kids had to go cold turkey, or was it gradual?
It was actually worse than cold turkey because we started with what I think of as boot camp blackout, which is to say we not only got rid of all our screen-based technologies, we got rid of all electricity and all power. So for 2 weeks in the dog days of the West Australian summer, I might add, we lived in a totally blacked out house. In fact, I thought it would be okay as far as taking a shower goes because we had a gas hot water system, but it in fact turned out that it had an electric igniter, so we didn't even, it was cold showers and everything. And the idea behind that was a kind of psychological thing. Also, I needed to defrost the freezer, to be honest, and it was the perfect opportunity. But I thought that if we could survive this time of total deprivation, that when we turn the lights and the power back on, people would be so overcome that they had a fridge and a microwave and, a light to read by, that they wouldn't feel, so sad about missing their screens. And I have to say, I can't even believe this myself, but it actually worked. It actually worked. I describe in the book my son's joy, his euphoria, the first time he used the microwave. When we turned the stuff back on, he was like, electricity is awesome.
Well, what was their first response when you pitched the idea?
Well, to be honest with you, it was very muted, which shocked me. And then I realized it was because they didn't hear me. They had their earbuds in, and they were playing their games. They went right over their heads. And then I actually lowered the boom on Christmas morning, so there were lots of distractions, lights, colors, sugar, everything was going on, and I made a huge pitch, and I was really taken aback at how little dispute there was. I mean, nobody really came back at me the way I thought they would. And it wasn't until a few days later that I discovered why, and it was Sussy who told me they thought I was joking. They actually thought I was joking. I mean, we had a long discussion. Maybe not joking, but I am given to whims, and I do sometimes make dramatic announcements. Like, from now on, we're not eating any meat in this family, that's it, we're becoming vegans, or, I've decided I don't want to use the car anymore. I do that from time to time. Or, that's it, we're living on $5 a week. There's no reason we can't live on $5 a week. So I think, and they tend to come and go with like hormonal fluctuations, and I'm pretty sure that they thought this was, one of those, but it wasn't.
What was your goal? What did you set out to prove, if anything?
I think really it was a consciousness raising exercise. I didn't set out to prove anything per se, but I thought of this period of time as being almost like a trip abroad for my children. You know how you want your children to go to Europe, or for that matter to Australia, to experience a whole new environment, to expand their horizons, to see how it's done in a different place. Well, I kind of wanted them to experience what life was like at a different time, and it wasn't so long ago. I mean, they always refer to it as the black and white days, and they think of it as being, 19th century, but really, and I talk about this in the book, most of the technologies that now rule our lives are so very recent. I mean, all of this has crept up on us really in the last 10 years, the confluence of the miniaturization, the Wi-Fi, and that, the 24/7 connectivity that goes along with all of that. That's new. Smartphones. I mean, smartphones are more revolutionary in many ways than the computer by itself, that, boxy PC that sits in the corner. I mean, the mobile devices is what's revolutionized our lives, and I think what's caught us by surprise. And that's something that's a note that I strike in the book that I think people will be able to relate to. This sense that we didn't choose to have this life for our children. You kind of look around before dinner and you see people suctioned onto their laptops and, devices squirming in their hands and their attention fragmented in a million different ways, and you think, hang on, when did this happen? Like, when did I say this was okay? And really, we never did. We've just been caught up in a particular moment, an actually fascinating moment in communications history. And so I wanted to take a step back from all of that and make it deliberate again. I wanted to make it deliberate, and that's a word that Thoreau uses in Walden, and that was my inspiration. He wanted to live his life deliberately, and that's what I wanted to do in my family. I wanted us to make conscious, deliberate choices about the way we use media.
Thank you. Great response. And question, how did your kids do their homework, and how did you as an author do your research?
Okay, well, it's important to realize that this media ban only extended to our house. Okay, we were all allowed to use technology, not our smartphones. If we had them, I was actually the only person who did, but you could use a computer at school, in the library for the kids. After about 3 months, I was absolutely pure for 3 months. I wrote my column by hand, which was horrible. But after about 3 months, I started working from an office so that I could, do my research. And there's a part of the book where I describe what it was like doing research in front of a computer again, where I was trying to get myself to pay attention to a particular book and just take notes on the screen. And the book happens to be Distracted. That's the title of the book, Distracted by Maggie Jackson. And it was hilarious because once I could Google things, I found that within about 45 minutes, I had strayed off of, Google imaging her because, I just wonder what she looks like. And then, gee, her hair, she's got really nice hair. How old would she be? And she mentioned a painting, and then I'm on to the museum website, and then, I found myself on Amazon.com buying a book on, how to find a husband after age 35 using what I learned at the Harvard Business School. And I kind of came to thinking, wait a minute. I remember that. Wilfing. What was I looking for? And so I had to keep myself on the straight and narrow.
What was the biggest thing that you learned? What did you learn from this? And what did your kids aren't here right now, but what did they get out of it?
I think the real prize for all of us was the quality of connection, ironically, that we retrieved, I guess is the right word. That our relationships with one another improved immeasurably. I mean, it almost makes me sad to say that because our experiment was actually an artificial exercise. So we all feel, not just me, but the children as well, we feel a kind of nostalgia for that time. It was a very special time where we were able to have long conversations with each other, play board games, actually sit around the piano and sing. I mean, the kids did this with their friends, which blew my mind. You know, the kids started hanging out on one another's beds. Stuff that they hadn't done since they were really little. They hung out on my bed. You know, we all, on a Saturday morning, they would pile into my bed, these very large people, to read the newspaper together. I mean, it was beautiful.
How has it changed now that you're back to a techno house?
Right. Well, yeah, as I say, even Thoreau left the woods eventually, and we did too, because, you know, we do love our technology. We're not, you know, none of us are Luddites. God knows I'm not. But there have been some definite long-lasting changes. For one thing, my son, when we switched back on again, sold his gaming computer that was like the center of his universe. He actually sold it to save up money to buy a saxophone, because one of the big changes for him was that he swapped his gaming for music. And that is a change that has absolutely persisted over time. He wants to be a professional jazz musician, and he continues to devote hours a day to his practice. And he did have a Facebook account, which he just recently exploded, as he told me. And I was like, you're kidding. Because I was like, oh, didn't I show you the pictures? You know, have a look on my Facebook. And he's like, Mom, I don't have Facebook anymore. I was like, oh my God, why? And he said, it's a time suck. So I thought, yes. Okay, Sussy, my youngest, is still, always was, and always will be, I think, the most connected of all of us, because she grew up with a keyboard at her fingertips. She still reminds me of kind of virtuoso harpist, the way she plays that keyboard. It's really a thing of beauty. But what I learned with her was that she needs her sleep. And until she's old enough to regulate herself with respect to her media, it's my job to do it for her. So I do that. I pull the modem out of the wall when I go to sleep. So I know that she's getting a good night's sleep, and she is not allowed to have a mobile device that is connected to the internet 24/7, because, you know, she hasn't reached that stage yet of being able to self-regulate. But, you know, sometimes I go in there and she is actually reading a book before she goes to bed, because she knows. It was staring at a screen. There are scientific reasons, and if you read the book, you'll find out what they are, why looking at a screen before bedtime does not conduce to a good night's sleep. So she always was a reader, and probably a little bit more so. And Ani, my eldest, she got into the habit, well, she had to, of doing her work for her university degree at the library. And that separation of work from home really appealed to her, and she found that she was much more productive doing that, and she's still doing that. So when she knows that she'll just be swamped by the desire to Facebook stalk if she's at home, she'll say, okay, that's it, I'm going to uni now, and she'll get her assignments done that way. And she regularly puts herself on what she calls Facebook fasts. So, you know, when there are exams due, she knows how to turn it off. And, you know, I don't think you can ever go back again. As I say, it was a consciousness-raising exercise, and now when I say to them, as I occasionally do to everybody, that's enough. That's enough. There are other things to do. It's not just something I'm saying. They know that that's true, and they experience how great life was when they were doing those other things.
I've got one more question, and it is, what are your readers telling you? You know, what are the first people out of the door who are reading this book, what are they telling you that's making you feel good about your work?
Okay, the thing that has made me feel the best have been Facebook messages. Now, irony upon irony here, but Facebook messages from people my children's ages saying, I read this book, OMG, it's me. You've really given me something to think about. You know, one girl said, don't bother replying to this message because this is the last message I'm sending on Facebook for a while. I'm going offline. And to me, that's really cool.
Well, thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you.